What is going on, everyone? Welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. It's Brian Hines, back as always with Alex Barth, getting ready for Week 9. The Atlanta Falcons coming to town, also just a couple days out from the NFL trade deadline, so we will certainly talk about that, go over some central positions and maybe some players and specific targets the Patriots could be targeting there before Tuesday, the deadline. But there is a football game to be played first, Barth. Sunday, the Atlanta Falcons, out of conference opponent coming to town, a team the Patriots aren't quite familiar with, haven't played in a couple of years. Don't know who their quarterback is going to be. Michael Penix has been limited this week. Kirk Cousins got in last week, didn't look great. Kind of like this Jekyll and Hyde football team, Bart, the Atlanta Falcons. You don't know what you're going to get, and it's kind of fitting that the Patriots don't even know what quarterback they're going to get right out of the gate now going on to this week.
Yeah, this Falcons team is odd. This Falcons team is a little up and down. Injuries are part of that. They have some weird indoor-outdoor splits. And so fittingly, you don't know the quarterback. Now, I will say, I've said this for a while, you guys know I'm going to have to, even though he's had kind of a rough season, I still believe in Michael Penix, and he's been put in bad spots at times. Michael Penix is not immobile. Michael Penix chooses not to use his mobility, but it's a factor when he does use it normally. And Mike Vrabel basically cited that as one of the two differences between him and Kirk Cousins this week. He said that a lot of the scheme stuff, the concepts are the same. It's just one guy, the handedness flips, which does matter more so for the front than in the secondary. And then one guy's more mobile than the other. But if Penix is dealing with a bone bruise in his knee, that maybe closes that gap a little bit. So the left-right thing still is a big difference, especially for the pass rush. And Vrabel talked about being able to, get hands on the football and take away passing lanes, but maybe not as big of a difference as we thought. But yeah, fittingly, and it's not just him. I mean, we might as well run through this all right now because we're going to talk about it a lot for the next hour or so. Penix, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Jake Matthews, Darnell Mooney. It's just on Tyler Algier. It's just on offense. Zach Harrison. I'm doing this off the top of my head too. Zach Harrison,
Billy Bowman,
Jesse Bates, Jalen Walker. That's whose name I was forgetting. I mean, they're just incredibly, incredibly banged up at this point.
Yeah. And compared to the Patriots, who have a pretty clean bill of health, except one player, which we will get to, but kind of going off Penix. Interesting when Vrabel was talking about, the lefty. This is the third lefty quarterback they faced this year, Tua, obviously, and then Dylan Gabriel. So that kind of was interesting to me if they do end up playing Penix, 3 lefty quarterbacks in a year. And then the mobility, like starting with this Falcons offense, not very impressed with it for all the talents they do have, assuming all these guys are healthy. Like Bijan is a freak. Drake London's a very good wide receiver. Kyle Pitts feels like, he hasn't lived up to that draft status, but still a good player and capable of beating a team that had trouble covering tight ends this year. But, Zach Robinson's the OC. I liked him in Los Angeles, but it just feels like they run a lot of this pistol and they're very predictable. Like 70% of their pistol plays are runs. A lot of that is outside zones. We know how good the Patriots run defense is. Now this will be probably the biggest test, Bijan Robinson, but I don't know. With all the talent that this Falcons team has, I just wasn't overly impressed with the offense. I mean, they're very close to the bottom of the league in points per game. So I just wasn't very impressed from a schematic standpoint with what they're kind of running with all the talent they have.
Yeah, that's part of it too. They use a lot of pistol in ways that it doesn't really make sense to use pistol. It's a collection of talent. It's not a team. I feel like, they figured out get the ball to Bijan. So that's a step. But after that, it doesn't feel like they're calling plays. They're just calling plays to call plays. It feels like, oh, this looks cool. Let's try that. And it's not necessarily something that's conducive to this. I don't want to say it's not conducive to the skill set, but I don't think it maximizes this skill set of the players they have. Like they're just calling plays that you would call. They're not emphasized. They have great size. They don't do a ton with that. Yeah, I'm struggling to figure out how to say this, but I don't hate the plays that they call in theory. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason for why they specifically are calling what they're calling in the at the times they're calling it.
It's like we watched that opening drive in the third quarter for the Patriots with Josh McDaniels, right? And they're
purpose, all of that.
Sequencing things, he's building off stuff. And the Falcons, like, I feel like they motion a lot, but a lot of it isn't like purposeful motion. It's just kind of, like running guys around all over the field. Like there's not a lot of purpose, I feel, for some of the stuff they do. And again, they're 28th. I just looked it up. 28th in scoring, 17.1 points per game. One of that, I'm sure the Kirk Cousins game last week didn't help, but maybe the Patriots end up going against Kirk Cousins this week. So assuming they are at kind of full force here and Drake London's playing and they do have Penix, how are you trying to match these guys up? Because it feels like this could be a man-to-man week. The Patriots have kind of shied away from man-to-man in recent weeks, but then you have, you're going to have the tight ends in man-to-man and Bijan in man-to-man. And, the Falcons offense as a whole hasn't been good in man-to-man against man-to-man, but Kyle Pitts has been the one kind of good thing that they've been able to do against that. So would you lean into more man-to-man, or do those two kind of matchups specifically scare you out of that?
Well, then there's also obviously the element of, do they have Drake London? And we don't know what his situation is going to be. You mentioned Pitts, and the tight ends have killed them. Darnell Mooney, who's also on the injury report, is one of these kind of fast, slippery slot receivers that's given them trouble. So you go back to Khalil Shakir in Buffalo a couple weeks ago, Chamari DK with the Titans. Like, these guys have sort of killed them. Marcus Jones gets the extension, probably going to be put right in a focal point right away coming off of that, because I would think he's the guy. Even if you're in zone, he's going to kind of shadow Mooney and use him there. But I do think this is a man coverage week. I like the Christian Gonzalez matchup against Drake London. You obviously got to take care of Mooney and be aware of his speed, and then maybe you send some help towards Kyle Pitts. So, and then Bijan's Bijan. I don't think you're just going to play him in man as simple as that. It's kind of all eyes on him. But I do think this week makes sense for a little more man coverage.
Would you try, if you have Gonzo and Drake London, where I'm with you, I like that matchup. Would you try maybe some Carlton Davis on Kyle Pitts? Also assuming Marcus Jones is taking, Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you with that. I think that would be kind of a good matchup. It feels like they're treating Pitts as a wide receiver this week. So maybe you do, they get a little creative and get Carlton Davis on him, assuming Drake London's healthy, and that's where Gonzo is going. But yeah, not overly impressed again with this Falcons offense with all the talent. Anything else Patriots wise? Like how do you think? Any thoughts on how they're going to replace Kyle Duggar, Keon White, or anything else on this defensive side of the football?
Well, as long as they're healthy at safety, there's like Duggar was replacing Hawkins and Woodson, right? And those guys look to be fully healthy now. Same with Keon White. He wasn't playing a ton. Now that's somebody else on the active roster. Maybe Elijah Ponder gets a shot. People have asked about Braden Swinson. We'll see what they ultimately do with the trade deadline. Like, I do think this potentially opens up a window for Swinson. I think because of some of their injuries, maybe not this week. I just don't think they're going to have that practice squad spot available. But I don't know that there's a ton of replacement for those guys. They just weren't playing a lot.
Yeah. I feel like it would be nice if Swinson got a shot at some point, but it's also like, do you want to rely on him? And this probably would get into more of a trade deadline conversation. Like, I think we all are in agreement. We want a pass rusher, but just so you don't have to rely on Swinson. But I do think it would be nice if he got a shot and got to prove something, get some NFL experience and snaps moving forward. Because I was high on him in the draft. I think there's a lot of talent there. So if he got an opportunity at some point here, I think that would be nice. But again, you probably don't want to force it if you don't have to, considering you are 6-2. You don't want to rely on a fifth round rookie and maybe an elevated role there. But that's the Patriots defense. Jumping over to the Patriots offense, we have this Falcons defense, really good front. They don't give up a lot of big plays in the secondary. They blitz a lot on third down or even in total. They have one of the highest blitz rates and highest pressure rates in the league. So do you have kind of a key for attacking this Falcons defense if you are the Patriots offense?
I'd run the ball. I said this to you and Taylor earlier today. What's stopping the Patriots from just coming into this game, running halfback dive 40 times and heading home? Now, the injuries might be the answer to that question. But you got to be able to run on them. They've been one of the best pass defenses in the NFL this season, especially that front, that pass rush. They've been one of the worst run defenses. You put those two together, to me, every time that's established the run to upset the timing of the pass rush. That's pretty cut and dry. That's pretty basic, but the Patriots have to feel like they're in a position to do that. Ramondre Stevenson didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. Usually that means guy's not going to play. So you have TreVeyon Henderson, who is coming off of his best game, but, rookie TreVeyon Henderson, who still has not really been a workhorse back yet in the NFL in any sense. Terrell Jennings, who you just added from the practice squad, then you're probably going to elevate somebody from the practice squad. I would think to Ernest Johnson, just because he's a veteran, he's a little more experienced. So do they feel comfortable with that group if it's a run the ball 35, 40 times kind of game? And look, I'm sure they'll mix in some, end arounds and things like that. And, but maybe heavy reliance on screens, quick passes, simulate the run game with the pass. But this is kind of where you got to look at it. And it's a tough one for the coaches. The self-scouting dictates, hey, we're banged up at running back. We're going to throw the ball a little more this week. The matchup dictates good pass defense, bad run defense. We need to run the ball more. So do you look at it and say, yeah, we're banged up, but we need to run the ball on these guys. So we're going to lean on TreVeyon Henderson. We're going to lean on Terrell Jennings, maybe more than we thought we would in a game coming into the season. Or do they do the opposite and say the game plan, the game plan dictates we need to run the ball, but looking internally, we don't believe we're in a position to do that. So we're going to have to figure out a way to throw it on these guys. That's probably been like a big point of the conversation this week, or, at the beginning of the week, when you put the game plan together, which side of the road are you on? It's a philosophical thing. There's no right or wrong answer. We'll see how the game goes. There ultimately will be a right or wrong answer, but I think that's how you have to look at this game.
Do you lean one way right now? Like, do you trust TreVeyon Henderson and Terrell Jennings if they do have to handle 30, 35, 40 even carries? If they go 40, they're probably in a position where they're winning a lot, and then they can just run the ball a lot. But do you kind of trust those backs, the guys who are healthy, if they're down Ramondre Stevenson, to kind of build the game plan around those guys?
I would at least try it. I wouldn't be married to it. I'd be ready to adjust relatively quickly, but especially Henderson, you drafted Henderson in the second round, right? So give him a chance to kind of carry it. As far as matchups go, the first game where he's going to have to be a bell cow again, this Falcons run defense is not great. So it's sort of a soft landing spot. I'm a fan of Terrell Jennings. I think more than most.
Runs hard.
That's right. I'd be okay with him getting like 10 to 12 carries. They may feel differently. But that's where you pick your spots, because he's not a home run threat. He's going to run a contact, hit the first guy in front of him, and fall forward. So there's value in that. But he's not a big play threat, whereas it's kind of flipped now, where Stevenson was the bowling ball, Henderson was the big play threat, but the big play threat was getting the minority of the snaps. Now that guy's in the majority of the snaps, so it kind of changes the way you approach it.
I do think this would be a good shot to try to get Henderson, like a good maybe 15 touches, carries, some receptions, try to get him going in the pass game, because that's something we've talked about. I think you said Matt Dolph said it first, like he just needs one. And it feels like he kind of got that one going against Cleveland. And now if you can build him some consistency and get him the ball in his hands and see if he can kind of keep going, because it is Falcons' first in pass defense, 149 yards per game, but they're also last in the NFL against those power run concepts, which is he kind of got going on getting them outside the tackles and pulling some guys with some power. So I do think this would be a good shot to maybe try and get TreVeyon Henderson going a little bit. And seeing with more touches and maybe some more comfortability if he can build on that. And then you have kind of Terrell Jennings as that spell back, and he can bring in
and
power.
To your point, the Falcons have been pretty middle of the pack in terms of, again, they're great pass defense. They've been pretty middle of the pack when it comes to running backs in the pass game. Middle of the pack in catches, yards. Who's allowed the most catches to running backs, by the way? Or at least tied for the most?
It's not the Patriots, is it?
It is the Patriots.
Okay.
Patriots and the Seahawks. They've allowed 47 catches.
Vaughn A-Chain had like 12 catches.
And that's probably so. Yards, they're sixth. So they're allowing these catches, but they're bringing the guys down. The Falcons are pretty middle of the pack, where they've been really good. They've allowed the fewest receptions and yards to tight ends. They've been really good against tight ends, and obviously they've been good against wide receivers. But running backs is kind of in a spot where you can get them. So again, you use the run game to simulate, or use the pass game to simulate the run game. I'll say it. This could be a big screen week. I think people were kind of surprised last week how light Josh McDaniels was on the screens. He only called one screen. I think there's only one completion behind the line of scrimmage for Drake May, if I remember correctly, which obviously was not the case earlier in the year. I think people were a little too freaked out earlier in the year by how many passes were behind the line of scrimmage, but last week there was none. This would not be a bad week for screen happy Josh McDaniels to come out. I think you could probably beat him on some of those.
I'm with you. And I'm still, again, maybe it's not this week if you're going screens, but I'm still waiting for the first like Travion Henderson downfield target, because we haven't got it since week 1 against Vegas. I don't even think he's ran another like wheel route or a downfield vertical route since week 1, which again, we saw so much in the spring in that joint practice and even in the preseason. So I'm still waiting for that. So I do think this would be a good game if Mondre is out. And again, he hasn't practiced Wednesday or Thursday with a toe injury. We don't know the exact details of that toe injury, but looks like he might not play Sunday. So I do think this would be a good shot to kind of get Travion Henderson going and maybe build some momentum there for the second half of the year. But with the passing attack, if they do kind of have to lean on Drake, again, it's a Falcons defense that does not allow a lot of explosive plays.
Yeah.
They do have one kind of weak link, and that is Mike Hughes, who has given up 3 deep touchdowns this year, tied for most in the NFL. So maybe they try to get Kayshon Boutte going on one of those. Hughes he primarily plays the field, and they have AJ Terrell play the boundary, so they can kind of pick and choose their shots if they want to get Kayshon Boutte maybe lined up on Mike Hughes and take some of their deep shots there. But it is overall a good Falcons defense in limiting some of those stuffs. They have a really good pressure package, a lot of 5-man fronts. Jalen Walker, a first-round pick. James Pierce, also a first-round pick. So they can get after you, and Drake has taken a lot of sacks this year. I know some of those have come, with him rolling out and at the line of scrimmage, but they have taken a lot of sacks, and this Falcons defense can kind of get after you. So anything with Drake or this passing attack that you just are looking for them to maybe take an advantage of, if they do kind of lean that way and maybe lean a little bit away from the run game?
I mean, I think it will be tricky. AJ Terrell is playing very high level of football. And he's one of the few guys that's not on the injury report. Jesse Bates is, Billy Bowman is, but he's not. So I don't want to say he can like totally take a receiver out of the game, but he's been sticky in man coverage. Second smallest window allowed on targets. Do they put him on Diggs? Do they put him on Boutte? Do they move him around? That's the question. But this might be a game like last week. Last week, I think they did it because they could. I don't think they did it because they had to. I think it was just the path of least resistance, was getting those secondary receivers more involved, whether it be Mac Hollins or Pop Douglas. This week, that might be more something you have to do, just depending on. Now, look, Terrell can't cover Boutte and Diggs, but Billy Bowman, if they put Billy Bowman in the slot and he's on one of them and, he's on Diggs, I'd still test that. Stephon Diggs on a rookie, but this might be a game where they have to get the secondary receivers a little more involved.
And they've been pretty open to spreading the ball around, so that doesn't feel like
I don't think that would be an issue. I don't think it would be an issue. It's just something you got to recognize and do.
Yeah, it shouldn't hinder them, but maybe just something that kind of shakes out with this one. So anything else on the Patriots offense, Falcons defense in this one?
I think that's it.
All right. So last thing, just in this preview, if Mondre is out and Travion has to take a bigger load in the backfield, where you kind of go in at kick returner. And we'll talk about maybe acquiring a kick returner in a second here with these trade deadline talks. But for right now, it feels like Terrell Jennings will be back there. If it's not Travion, who are you leaning to put next to him in this one?
I'll keep pounding the table for Kyle Williams. I don't think it's going to happen. I guess if not, just Efton Chisholm, because it's somebody that you trust that's not going to like make a mess of it. But they do need to get an explosive kick return 100%.
Does Dearness Johnson have kick return experience?
Not in the current. He hasn't returned a kick since 2023. So okay. He does have a good amount of kick return experience, but that was in the old format. So that's not a no. It doesn't mean he can't do it. And I'm sure they'll give him a shot this week in practice. Like, he has the profile for it. He absolutely has the physical profile for it. He's just never done it before. So everybody's got to do it for the first time at some point. I don't know if he was working on it in Arizona or Baltimore when he was on the practice squads there, but it's a good name to bring up. But I honestly, it's tough to say how they'd feel about that.
Yeah. Cole asked Marcus Jones in the chat. Again, they've been pretty adamant they don't want to do that unless it's like a last play of the game. They need a big return late in a game situation because they do lean for those bigger bodies, like a running back, which is probably why we haven't seen Kyle Williams there either. So don't think we're going to get Marcus Jones.
It's pretty crazy. I think we did this when we did our emergency pod the other night on Tuesday night.
All the returners or wide receivers.
The top not punt returners, kick returners in the NFL. Receiver, running back, receiver, running back, receiver. That's the top 10. The number one corner is Brandon Codrington. He's 13th, and he's about Marcus Jones size. But after him, the next corner is Tremon Smith, who's 29th in the league. He's below league average at kick returner. So punt return still maybe. I think the days of seeing defensive players return kickoffs, unless you get a rare talent, is probably that might be kind of a dinosaur thing now, honestly.
I was just looking through the roster. Like, I don't even know if you had to put a defensive player back there, who would you put? Like,
right.
Like probably Marcus Jones, honestly. But
I would say even looking at punt returners, I just pulled up like the return leaders. There's only 19 players that qualify and that have enough returns. We'll go total returns. Marcus Jones has the most returns of any defensive player, frankly, of any non-receiver. The top 14 are all receivers. Then Marcus Jones. Brandon Codrington is 19th. Next time you get to a corner, there's a handful of guys that have won. Tarheeb still has 5. And then no other corner has more than 3. So you really, and Marcus Jones is an exception because he's a unique case because he was a two-way player in college.
Yeah.
So I think the days of defensive players in those roles, outside of some very rare examples, and you might get a guy like Marcus Jones or Travis Hunter or who were we watching today? Coy Parrish. When he gets to the league. Those are probably going to be the kind of guys that do it. I think the days of defensive players returning kicks. So college is different. Craig Woodson did in college. Just like a lot of things in college, if you're the most athletic guy, you just kind of end up there. It's not always the case in the NFL. So I think that just, who knows, maybe it's just a trend here for a couple of years as they figure this position out. But part of me does wonder if we've seen the last of defensive players returning kicks and punts.
There's still a little bit of that like high school feel in college where like just get the ball to your best athlete in space and let him go. And it just doesn't kind of work like that in the NFL. I was looking up, someone said Saunders, the new safety they signed in the chat, could do it. I looked at his college stats. I don't think he ever returned at Ole Miss. So I don't think he would be an option either, John Saunders. So probably going to stick to offense. It'll be Terrell Jennings. And if they call up Dearness Johnson, maybe him, or if not, maybe Efton Chisholm gets the nod. Jeremiah Webb, someone else threw in the chat. He did have a good one in Minnesota in the preseason, and he's more of like an explosive guy, but then you need the roster spot for him, and if they have other elevations, that could kind of be tough off the practice squad there. So I would bet just Terrell and then probably either Johnson or Chisholm there, but we will see what happens. So that is Falcons coming to town at Patriots. We'll hear from our friends over at Prize Picks. We'll do our Prize Picks lineup later as well, and then we'll talk some trade deadlines before we do that. But first, let's hear from our friends at Prize Picks. And Barth, you and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right and simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. We got some Thursday night football kicking off in less than an hour. If you guys are listening live right now, Ravens at Dolphins. Lamar Jackson is back, so you can put him in your lineups. Derrick Henry going against that Dolphins defense, or Tua, Jalen Waddle, all those guys, Devon A-Chain in Miami. You can throw those guys in your Prize Picks lineups as well. And if we have an injury, Prize Picks offers injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks won't count it as a loss. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All over on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. All right. Trade deadline coming up on Tuesday. Barth, I believe you said you had 4 areas of need today for the Patriots. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I wrote it before they made all those trades the other night, but yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go through them one by one here? We can talk about maybe some targets and so on. So what is the first position there that you are, or one of the positions? You don't have to go in order.
Well, so yeah, running back's the one that I'm not sure. Like, where's Ramondre Stevenson at health-wise? How do they really feel about Terrell Jennings? You need 3 running backs on the roster. That's just to get through the course of the season. You do. So if they like Terrell Jennings and Ramondre Stevenson's only going to miss a week, maybe this isn't a need. I don't think they need a guy at the top of the depth chart. I'm not saying no to it, but I don't think they need a guy at the top of the depth chart. They just need to round it out. So maybe they feel like Terrell Jennings does that. I had talked about it being the double dip and getting the kick returner. We talked about a lot of guys, Jerome Ford, Damon Pierce. Like there's guys that fit, but if they're good with Jennings, Stevenson, and Henderson, you might not need to force anything.
I'm with you. Now, if Stevenson is going to miss time, like if this
now you need another running back
or something. Now you need a guy, and it's maybe more than just the. We've talked a lot about like Jerome Ford or Damian Pierce. Like if it's just Terrell Jennings and Travion Henderson, who doesn't seem like they've trusted to have a full workload, and we even talked that you maybe don't want him to have 20, 25 carries. Then maybe you're looking at like a Tony Pollard, or I don't think Breece Hall would be on the table, but you're looking at maybe more of a higher level back than one of those bottom of the depth chart guys.
Yeah, that would change the calculations of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So is one of those guys like Tony Pollard? Would you have one in the top of your list?
Yeah, I mean Pollard's not a bad player. Pollard's not a bad player. I do wonder if they want more of that true bowling ball type. It's tough because there's not that many teams that are truly selling.
Yeah. Because
of that we talked about this earlier. That 7th wild card spot keeps teams in it much longer than they probably should be in it. Baltimore has some good backs in depth that I wouldn't mind splitting with Travion Henderson. I don't think you need somebody better than Travion Henderson. You just need, if Stevenson's going to miss time, you need somebody you're comfortable getting, 15 to 20 carries a game. Damon Pierce would probably be another guy that could fit that role. So, I'd probably say Pierce if you're not going to get Breece Hall.
Yeah, I like Pierce. I mean, he almost had 1,000 yards his rookie year. He was very good at Florida in college. He's just kind of got, they traded for Joe Mixon in Houston, and now they have Nick Chubb and Woody Marks. So he just kind of got phased out. He's still only 25 years old. So I would be down for Dameon Pierce. I don't know if he's got kick return experience. Like that's something Jerome Ford and Tony Pollard, I think, too, has kick return experience. Let me look.
Dameon Pierce, I can tell you, does a little bit.
Very minimal. He's got 19 total returns, although he had a touchdown in 2023.
That's the old rules. The rules start 2024, right?
Yes.
So 12 returns in the new rules. He is averaging, almost 30 yards a return in that. So
not bad. So
yeah,
I would like Dameon Pierce, Jerome Ford, probably those guys. If they do want a little bit of a bigger name, I could see Tony Pollard. But I don't think Breece Hall is going to be the fit. I don't know why the Jets would do that unless the Patriots give up like a much higher pick than other teams are offering either. But running back, I think it really pivots on that Ramondre Stevenson injury, and hopefully we get some more information on that in soon before the deadline. But what other positions are you looking at besides running back there?
I mean, edge and safety. I said tight end stopper when I originally did this, and I take a linebacker in that role, but now maybe it has to be a safety. But those spots that they've kind of trimmed thin after these trades. John Saunders, maybe they like. I feel like you could get somebody better than him because that depth's really thin now. They do still have Del Pettis, but those are two of the other spots, just kind of refreshing the depth from those trades.
Yeah. So, I mean, names like Arden Key, who was a Vrabel guy for a year in Tennessee.
So I think you're probably looking at Albert Breer. We talked about Albert Breer's report that they're probably going to take a more long-term approach. And that doesn't necessarily mean no rentals. It means if a guy is a rental, it's a guy you could realistically sign. I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up my article to get the list of names I had, and the video player started going in the background. That's why I started yelling. Make sure I mute this tab before I start screaming at you guys again. There we go. So there's a couple edge rushers that I'm surprised some of these guys are reportedly available, but like ESPN had them on their list and some other places had them on their list, or like in their early to mid 20s. Arnold Ebiketie, who obviously they'll see this week in Atlanta, Azeez Ojulari in Philly. You mentioned Arden Key. The one that really surprised me was Boye Mafe. Multiple people had him as available. I don't really know why the Seahawks. I know he doesn't have a big role, but the Seahawks are kind of rolling, and he's doing more than what.
Has he had a down year? Because he was awesome last year, I thought.
I think he's just not playing. But he's not playing, but I don't think he's not playing to the extent that Keon White was not playing.
He doesn't have a sack this year.
Now, he's played 62% of snaps. ESPN had him on there. I have no idea. Look, he's in a contract year.
That's probably why, just in a contract year.
I guess. So. Like that kind of guy would be who I would think they'd be looking at. A guy, again, Ebiketie's probably more realistic, or Ojulari, if the Eagles are going to sell, that's another good team, but he doesn't really have a role there. Trying to find the next K'Lavon Chaisson, former first-round pick, edge guy, just doesn't have a role, hasn't worked out. Let's get our hands on him and see if we can develop him.
I know this is another in-division, Jalen Phillips, or even Jermaine Johnson.
I would just be shocked if those guys get moved in the division, because I think any team, if you're trading a guy like that to the Patriots. So Breece Hall's a little different. I've kind of been down on the Breece Hall trade thing because I don't think the Jets would trade him in the division, but I think you could also look at it from the Jets' point of view as he could be a rental. He's not going to re-sign there. He wants to hit the old market, blah, blah, whatever, right? You can't be Miami or the Jets and give that play. Like, the Patriots are trading for a guy in that role to re-sign him. I would think if you're trading for a guy like that, even if he is in theory a rental, everything we've heard about their philosophy right now is they would try to re-sign that guy. And I think that if you're the Jets and the Dolphins, and you just can't allow that to happen. Let the Patriots go into a bidding. If they're going to end up with that guy, let them outbid 31 other teams in free agency instead of just giving up a pick to do it. So I just don't see it. It would be great. Don't get me wrong. It'd be great. I just don't see it happening.
Unless they overpay, right? Like if they
which they shouldn't do.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they give you a second round pick, those teams probably have to take that at that point. But that's when you're getting to the Patriots should probably be uncomfortable range. But
I'd rather just draft an edge guy in the second round at that point.
Yeah, I think Jalen Phillips would be a great target. Still only 26 years old, former first round pick. He's dealt with some injuries. Just see if you can kind of get your next, K'Lavon Chaisson and then re-sign him and get a boost from your pass rush there. So I would love Jalen Phillips. I think that would be a great move. But again, just that in-division thing, it is kind of tricky. You mentioned linebacker.
Yeah.
Any interest? Mention these sellers, Cardinals, Mack Wilson, kind of the one who got away last year.
They need a coverage linebacker. Mack Wilson would be awesome. That'd be a home run addition if they can get him. Absolutely. Yeah. And he's probably going to be cheaper than Logan Wilson. It might be a better player for the role they need.
Honestly, probably. He signed like a 3-year deal with the Cardinals, I believe, right?
That sounds right. Even better. You're getting a young guy with Turo. Is he still young?
He's got to only be 3-year deal.
He's only 27. Wow.
There you go. So you would have him for 2 years.
Yeah, I'd be very in on that.
Of course, it was the one guy who they didn't re-sign last year.
I think he was literally the only guy they didn't re-sign.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's the one guy they could really use right now, which is unfortunate. But if he's available, I mean, the Cardinals are kind of in this downward spiral very quickly. So if they would move on from Mack Wilson, who I think he's a captain there, so maybe that's not something they would be interested in. But if Mack Wilson was available, I would definitely be interested in bringing him back to join this linebacker group. But any other offense defense position? I know you have kick returner on your list, but was there anything else before you get into kick returner?
I mean, I'll just kind of say on default, and we're getting some questions about it here in the chat. offensive line depth is like pitching depth. Even when you think you have enough, it still probably doesn't hurt to add more. Now, what they're not going to do is add a starting left guard, because if there's a starting caliber left guard out there, he's not getting traded. The starting caliber linemen really don't get traded at the deadline. They're not going to replace Jared Wilson at the deadline. I would be shocked if they replace Jared Wilson at the deadline. I'd probably look at a backup interior guy. I would like to see if it, and you hope it doesn't come to it, but Marcus Bryant, he can play some swing tackle. I think it's really just if you have to replace Jared Wilson with Ben Brown, okay, now Jared Wilson's not a guard. He's only a center. Now you need a true backup guard. I wouldn't hate to see them add an interior guy. Now, again, probably not a starter, but just somebody, it's a young group. Somebody's a little more veteran, a little more experienced. And that's 90% of that is just, I'd never say no to more offensive line depth. I don't think they need it, but I will never at any point say it's just a philosophy thing. I'll never at any point say, yeah, they're good on the offensive line, they should look to add. I think you should always be looking to add there.
Can never have too much on the offensive line. Agree. So maybe that's something. Someone else in the chat mentioned, back to the defensive line, Draymond Jones. He's playing a little bit more edge now. He's had a decent year for Tennessee. 3 sacks so far, so maybe that's another option. I don't think he ever overlapped. No, this is his first year in Tennessee, so he never overlapped with Vrabel. But believe he's on a 1-year deal, so maybe Draymond Jones could be someone that shakes free as well. Don't see any other names in the chat. So.
I did see somebody mentioning Jackson Powers Johnson. He's a
what happened to him?
He's in the same spot as Jared Wilson. He's a true center. He's guard. A good center. They put him at guard, and he's not a guard. So if you were, and he's got benched, I think, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I believe so.
If you're going to trade for him, you're giving up on Jared Wilson, because they're both centers. They're both true centers. So I just don't see the fit.
Yeah. Do you think they have a big splash in them? Someone's just bringing up Trey Hendrickson in the chat. Just the amount of times Vrabel has brought up, we want this long-term approach. I don't think you're going to get the big splash, but I don't know. Do you feel differently about that?
I mean, look, what they did the other night was reminiscent of an MLB or NHL trade deadline, to kind of clear the table for something. As a whole, I don't believe splash moves happen at the NFL trade deadline. I think the last one that did, if I remember correctly, was Von Miller, and that's 3-4 years ago now. So you could argue we're due. Trey Hendrickson, AJ Brown, no. I would be floored if something like that happened. I'm not anything close to expecting that. A name that's been out there a little bit, like Kayvon Thibodeau. That would be as splashy as I could see them getting. And that, I think you could argue that's a splash. But it's about as splashy as I could see. Is still a rental, got in the last year of his deal. Not a guy that is you're not prying away like another team's top 5 player. I don't think you're going to do that. But they could do something. I could see them being a little more aggressive than the average trade deadline team. They kind of already have been.
Yeah. So last thing, trades. Anyone else going out, would you guess? Anthony Jennings is one of these holdovers still, whose role has diminished.
So I'll say this. Jennings' role is diminished, but he still has a pretty clearly defined role, especially now that Keon White's gotten traded. For all we talked about Mike Vrabel clearing the decks and moving on from the old regime and getting his guys, look, some guys they just moved on from right away. It was mainly older guys who were dealing with injuries, David Andrews, Juwan Bentley, Joe Cardona. The guys that made it to camp, they're not in the business of moving on. Marcus Jones was right there. I think we were talking about Marcus Jones as a scheme fit issue more than we were Keon White. And Marcus Jones played damn good football. And not only did they keep him around, he has an extension. I did this rant on Catch 22 the other day. I'm trying to remember who some of the other guys were that I talked about. Marcus Jones is obviously the prime example, but Kayshon Boutte has played really good football, and he's still here. And the guys that didn't aren't. Even some of the guys we thought were fits. Keon White, Kyle Duggar, they've moved on from. Maybe it wasn't immediately, but when they had a chance to move, they moved them. Jabril Peppers would fit in that category. I'll ask you this, Brian, of the holdovers who were in like starting roles, who were in big roles, right? They kept some depth guys, some draft picks. Who's still here that's not playing well? There's one guy kind of. I'm curious what you think.
Well, like early, it was probably Mondre with the fumbles.
So
Mike
that
was kind of up and down early.
I'm not ready to say Mike Onwenu's not playing well yet. He had a couple bad games, but I'm not. He had a really good start to the season.
Settled down, especially.
Yeah. Ramondre's the one in my mind, and they didn't really have an option. They didn't have enough running backs to move on from him, and he's somebody that we'll probably talk a lot about this offseason, his standing. So they've kept the guys that have played well. Like it wasn't okay. Well, I think we made it too complicated at the time. Well, they're keeping this guy, and this guy's involved because he does this, and this guy's going to move on because he doesn't do this, and he does blah, blah, blah. And if you just look at it point blank, the guys that played well stayed, the guys that didn't. And so, in terms of guys going out, pretty much everybody they have at this point that's here from the old regime is playing well. Again, the one exception is Ramondre Stevenson, who, on top of not having the running back depth, is hurt. So they're not going to trade him. I think that thing's kind of been taken care of, at least in the short term. Onwenu will be an interesting one in a couple of years when his contract gets more manageable to get out of it. He gets older. Ramondre will be one this offseason. But like Marcus Jones, they've extended. Kayshon Boutte, it looks like they're going to keep around. Hunter Henry, they brought back. They made him a captain. Who are the other guys? The defense is pretty much entirely overhauled. Gonzalez, right? Gonzalez is playing well. So if he keeps playing like this, he's going to be here again. They're not in the business.
I would say Tavai was kind of a surprise to stick around. But
yeah, Tavai hasn't really – I guess he hasn't really played well enough to make a judgment, although he was playing – he was good in the spring.
Yeah.
And he did have a good first week camp before he got hurt. So I don't think there's an obvious answer to who's the next guy they move on from, because there are some guys that we look at and we say, all right, Vrabel didn't bring him in. He's on a weird contract. What are they going to do with him? But those guys are all playing well right now. So even if they want to move on from a big picture – they're not guys you'd rush out the door.
Yeah. No, I agree. But if they do have a full roster now, so if they bring someone in, someone's going to have to go out the door. But maybe it's just bottom of the roster guy. But we'll see. Again, trade deadline is Tuesday, so we'll have another show, recapping the Falcons game Monday. Yeah. So if anything happens, or if we get any new details on anything, we can talk a little bit more.
We might need to do a later in the day show on Monday just to make sure we don't get jumped of any news.
Yeah. Might have to go back to maybe like the 7 or 8 o'clock window for that one.
Not 6, 7. So you go 7 or 8. I learned what 41 is now too.
41.
41. Yeah, I figured out 41 all by myself too. How about that?
Look at you go. Did South Park help you with that one again, or
no? It wasn't in South Park. I just kind of stumbled on it.
Nice job. But let's go back to Falcons very quickly to wrap this one up and do our Prize Picks lineup. Again, new users on Prize Picks can use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Barth, we have everything on the table for Prize Picks except the running back options are a little slim right now just because Ramondre Stevenson.
We wanted to go with Terrell Jennings.
Well, you could put Terrell Jennings for a touchdown in there if you want. They have more than half a rush plus receiving touchdown.
Is that one of those boosted ones too?
It is.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Roll with it. I think we're.
And then I get to do that tweet again about he's the I don't remember the numbers, but like he's the 300 something to score a touchdown, 400 something at the score point. People hate that tweet. I have no idea why. People get not everybody, but some people get very annoyed when I share that. And I like, what is the harm in it?
I don't know. I don't see the harm.
I don't understand it. It infuriates some people. I have no idea why.
Good. That means you should keep.
Right. No, I'm not going to stop doing it.
Perfect. Some of those secondary receivers you mentioned, well, Boutte's on here, 32.5 receiving yards, longest reception, 19.5 for Kayshon Boutte.
I like both.
Mac Hollins.
Unless he has Terrell on him most of the game.
Mac Hollins is 20.5 and longest reception is 13.5.
What else?
And then Diggs is 47.5 receiving yards, 4.5 receptions.
So I guess who do we think AJ Terrell is going to be covering more Booty or Diggs?
I think they're gonna try to get Booty on Mike Hughes and take their deep shots.
All right, so let's the total yardage for Booty was a low enough number. Let's go more there.
32.5. So he could get that in one catch, and then any
Right.
other. So we'll go more than 32.5 receiving yards for Booty. Hunter Henry, Falcons were pretty good against tight ends, so 37.5 receiving yards for Hunter Henry.
Yeah, we might want to go less on that.
You want to go less?
They've only allowed like 100-something yards to tight ends all season.
Yeah. Hunter's been pretty quiet lately, too, in the stat sheet. He's been...
So, look, either we get this right or it's a reverse jinx and he finally breaks out. It's a win-win.
Perfect. And then Drake, 235.5 pass yards, 272.5 total yards. Or we can look at some Falcons guys here.
Yeah, we should probably throw Bijan on here.
Yeah. Andy Borgalis is on here. More than 1.5 field goals made. Or 2.5.
Kicking a lot of field goals.
2.5 extra points.
What do you think?
Or 7.5 kicking points. Tons of options. Field goals?
12 points last week.
Did he? Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to go kicking points?
Sure.
Get Andy in there, more than 7.5. All right, let's go Falcons here. Maybe Bijan, Kyle Pitts. They're so banged up. We'll see what's even available right now. Bijan is 37.5 receiving yards and then 66.5 rushing yards. So that would be the first back to go over 50 yards against the Patriots.
So I think the Falcons are actually going to throw the ball to Bijan a lot. That rushing yards total might be the way to go.
Under rush yards or over receiving yards?
Over receiving. More
receiving. More than 37.5 receiving yards. So that's 5. So we need our sicko pick then to round it up.
All right. What are the worst games on the schedule this week? Jaguars, Raiders is pretty gross.
Yep, that's yucky.
Bears, Bengals.
Flacco.
Is Flacco playing? He got hurt last week.
I think he was limited in practice today, so I think he's going to play now.
What about this? Who's one of those players we talked about being a trade target for the Patriots?
Tony Pollard, Breece Hall.
I think the Titans are off. The Jets are off. So that. Oh no, Titans are playing the Chargers.
Okay, Pollard. We got 14.5 receiving yards, 39.5 rush yards for Tony Pollard.
So here's the question: are the Titans going to sit him to keep him healthy because they want to trade him?
Oof. Getting really in the weeds here. Also, the game script for Tony Pollard against the Chargers, that could be a blowout with how bad the Titans are playing.
So should we go less rushing yards?
Less than 39.5 rush yards?
Yeah.
Or we go more than 14.5 receiving yards?
No, let's go less rushing yards.
Less rushing yards? All right.
Yeah.
Poor Tony Pollard. But, all right, we got Terrell Jennings more than half a rush plus receiving touchdown. Kayshon Boutte more than 32.5 receiving yards. Hunter Henry less than 37.5 receiving yards. Andy Borgalis more than 7.5 kicking points. And Bijan Robinson more than 37.5 receiving yards. And we finish that off with our sicko pick. Titans, Chargers, trade candidate Tony Pollard less than 39.5 rush yards. That is a 6 correct picks payout guarantee, 84-time payout. Big guarantee payout in this one. So new users, $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup with code CLNS. If you put that $5, $420 payout. If you then want to put that $50 in lineups, $4,200 payout for this lineup right there. You can also get some payouts if we go 4 of 6, 5 of 6, or of course 6 for 6 right there. So we'll tweet out that screenshot. If you guys want to play along with us, we recommend you do so on Prize Picks. And again, new users, use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All right. Barth, any closing thoughts, or we can wrap this one up?
I think it's pretty much it.
All right. So we will be back early next week. We'll talk about any trades that went down or any new rumors, and then we'll, of course, break down Falcons at Patriots. Patriots looking for their 6th win in a row at Gillette Stadium. So make sure you guys are locked on to Patriots Press Pass, like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you know when we are going to go live on Monday. And if you are on audio only, we ask you to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else. We would appreciate if you subscribe there as well. You can also follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com for his Patriots coverage there. And you can follow me on Twitter at @IamBrianHines and head over to patspulpit.com for our Patriots coverage there as well. So thanks, everyone, for jumping on with us tonight. Have a wonderful weekend, wonderful Halloween. Enjoy all the football, and we will see you guys back next week.
Bye.